everybody, and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're socially distant but technically connected. I am Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science for Tremco, and I'm very excited to be up in front of you all each and every Friday. Today, I have something that I think is pretty exciting to share. I was at a conference last week, and I was able to sit down with 3 industry colleagues and just kind of talk through some of the things we're facing today. And if you recall, for the month of September, we're focusing on things like labor savings. So I thought it might be interesting to sit down, talk to a few people about just that, labor savings, some of the things they're seeing in labor shortages, raw material supplies, and just maybe how they're doing business a little differently now because of COVID. So I've got a series of videos that I'm going to share, but I also want you guys to interact with me today. So as they're talking, as they're dialoguing, if there's things you want me to follow up with you on or things you want to share with the audience, please use that question pane. And I do, of course, have a couple polls for you as well. So we'll be interacting a lot today, but thanks for joining me. Thanks for winding down your week with me. And let's go ahead and get started and see who I was able to sit down with. It seems like it was a long time ago, but it was just last week. So it was just last Saturday where I was at this conference and able to sit down with a few people.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our engagement here in Phoenix, Arizona. And we are all at the IBAC conference and pretty excited to be together because we haven't been together in such a long time. So I am joined today by a few of my colleagues in the industry and friends, John Posnecker, Laverne Dalgleish, and Trevor Brown. So welcome, everybody. So we're going to sit here, and basically this is called Coffee and Conversation, I guess, is what we're doing right now. And before we get going, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your experience in the industry. So we'll kick it off with you, John.
So I graduated as a mechanical engineer from Auburn a long time ago. And
so Auburn tonight, right?
That's right.
There's a game tonight.
Penn State.
Yeah.
And went to work in the power industry, commercial nuclear power industry for about 15 years. Went to work for a family business, and after about 6 or 7 years, went other ways and went to work for a roofing waterproofing. Spent 10 years there as a sales estimating manager and learned the business. And then I've been for the past 8 years, I guess, maybe 10 years, as a consultant. Building exterior solutions, and were acquired by Tremco. So live in Austin, Texas, have 3 kids.
Awesome, that's great.
Enjoying life.
Enjoying life, that's good. And we learned yesterday to support each other. So John, I got your back.
That's right.
Got your back.
Got your back.
We had a great motivational speaker yesterday. So that was one of the key things, just about raising each other up and being supportive in the industry. Next up, we've got Laverne. Laverne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I was related to the construction industry from day one. My dad had a sawmill and planer mill. My uncles were carpenters, and spent a bit of time in manufacturing large 4-wheel drive tractors. But after that, it was all construction related. And the business I have now with a partner with my son, we established about 30 years ago, and we're focused on training and quality assurance. And so currently, I act as the Executive Director of the Air Association, and for the last 1.5 years, the Chief Operating Officer of Marine Screen Association in North America.
Great, and so that is a newer organization. So we'll make sure we share information for people that might be interested, obviously in the Air Association of America or the newly formed RAINMAP. So we'll make sure to share that.
Excellent.
Perfect. And last but not least, Trevor Brown.
Excuse me. I got started in the construction industry in 1999 as a concrete tester, and I worked my way up through special inspection side of things. I've been working with Jay Dunn for 15 years now, so been in the industry a little over 20, and with Dunn for 15 as a quality assurance manager. And I've got 4 kids and 2 grandkids.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Life's good. I live down in Texas near John, so that's how we know each other.
So concrete testing, that's interesting. Where were you doing that at?
Las Vegas, maybe.
In Las Vegas.
Yeah, working on the strip, building casinos.
Nice. Lots of experience there, I'm sure. And I don't know if we taught Laverne, and where do you live?
I live in Winnipeg, Canada.
Winnipeg, Canada. I was able to visit you there a couple times. I got to go to the Jets game. It was the Jets versus the Canadians. Thank you very much for that. That was a fun time. In the land where you have to plug in your vehicles in the winter, these guys don't know anything about that.
My wife's from North Dakota, so
Oh, okay, now we'll give you a pass on that.
I grew up in Wyoming and South
Oh, gosh.
We actually don't plug our vehicles in anymore. It's cars have changed.
The car, okay, so I'm dating what I read.
I like the old days when we used to put frost shields on and we'd come down south and claim their bulletproof glass and all this stuff.
The conference that we were at, we were able to share the information virtually, so we'll be able to send off information on that so you guys can engage that way. So once again, it was really exciting to sit down with them. Now, you may already know those individuals. So it was Trevor Brown from J.E. Dunn, Laverne Douglas from ABAA, and John Posnecker from Terracon. So what was great was just getting the different perspectives. That's what you're going to see in these series of videos. Someone from the general contracting world, which is Trevor, Laverne representing an industry association, and then of course John representing the design professional. So as I mentioned, you may already know them, but we thought it was interesting before we presented during that conference was we shared something about each other that you might not know about us. So I'm going to put up a polling question right now because I found 3 interesting facts about our presenters today. So I'm going to put it up right now and show you guys. So what do you think is correct here from the people you just saw? One of them is a scuba diver, one of them raises ducks, and one of them has snakes in their freezer. So if you guys could just join me in doing this right now and go ahead and write who you think is who as you see that poll coming up for you right now. So if you guys could go ahead and just take a look at that. So I kind of mixed them up there so you can kind of decide who is who as we look at this opportunity here. Okay, thanks everybody. We're getting some votes in here. Perfect. I'm gonna close it out and then share the results with all of you. So we'll check back in with the guys and you'll learn about who is who, but just so you can kind of see where everybody was voting here and who you think has, what interesting thing about them. So let's go ahead and get back to the guys and see exactly, who is the snake charmer and who is the scuba diver and who is the individual that raises ducks.
Rattlesnake roundup guy to be Trevor, you were right. What's going on there with that?
So I've got 10 acres of property in Texas, and when the rattlesnakes come around, we typically kill them. And I don't like to waste them, so I put them in the freezer for leather projects.
Do you have any with you today that we can see?
No, I don't.
Okay. My mom, you know what my mom would say, there's probably the only good snake out there is a dead snake.
Yeah,
she would appreciate what you're handling there in your roundup. And next we've got our scuba diver, Laverne, scuba diver. How long have you been doing that?
Oh, for a few decades. It was one of the things I always wanted to do, be a pilot and scuba dive. And I've been scuba diving, still got to work on a pilot.
Okay, so you still can see that. Scuba dive with your family members? Are you and Brian out there scuba diving together? Yeah.
All my children are certified and in-laws and so on. The only one that's not my wife, she doesn't like water touching her face, which is a problem if you're in a scuba dive.
Yeah, well, she can keep all your towels while you're underwater, and I'm sure can experience all the beautiful scenery wherever you guys go to do that. So that's awesome. And John, I know I teased John yesterday when we were presenting about his ducks. So tell me about the ducks.
So we started raising ducks maybe 6-8 years ago. We had some land in a pond. We were raising them for the eggs. So now they're more pets than they are making money on the eggs. But we were up to 175 and we're probably down to about 75 to 100.
175. I didn't realize that many ducks. Oh my goodness. Do you have them in a certain area? Do you have to pen them in? Do they wander around?
They roam free during the day.
Okay.
They usually stay around, but they're like kind of like
Once again, it's just kind of interesting to kind of get that feedback or that information, from those people that you are working with on a regular basis, those industry colleagues. So to kind of get us back to obviously the topic that we're all here about today is we wanted to reach out to these guys to just kind of get their impression. How has COVID impacted how they work? Are they experiencing different challenges as it relates to labor shortages? And then, of course, as it relates to raw materials and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and listen to this next video. But I just thought for us to share amongst ourselves, I have another polling question for you all so that you can share just that. So you can go ahead and answer this next poll if you would for me. So once again, just kind of getting your level of experience, choose all that applies. So if they're all affecting you, please let us know. Changes in how you are working because of COVID. Are you experiencing different types of labor shortages, raw material shortages, or project delays? So if you could let us know about that. It was interesting. So, as we're walking around talking to different individuals at this conference, it was just a great way for us to engage and kind of think about how we are coping, right, with what we have in front of us and what we're all facing. So there's a lot of things coming together all at once, and it certainly can be very challenging for all of us. So one of the seminars we attended was about having each other's back. And so you might hear that throughout some of our dialogue here. We'd gotten that presentation the day before, and it's about having each other's back in the industry. So I think that was a great way to really kind of kick off this conference, but also it's just a great thing to think about in the industry as we all kind of start to relate to ourselves and, try to be empathetic because of all that we're dealing with. So we'll go ahead and share how you guys all answered today. So you can see, obviously, lots of you are dealing with some of the changes we've had made because of COVID. We're going to talk about some of the things we've started to do that are good things because of COVID, like being accepting of virtual engagements where maybe we weren't before. Obviously, you can see 50% labor shortages. That's going to continue to be an issue as our workforce is aging. So I think we all need to take it on ourselves to really get out there and educate the industry as much as possible. Raw material shortages, Trevor's going to tell you a little bit of how they're trying to combat that. And then, of course, a lot of you experiencing different types of delays. So let's check back in with our guys and see what they have to share. We're going to kick it off with Trevor.
Yeah, well, I think like everyone else, we closed our offices back in March of last year, tried to reopen in June of this year, but they're looking at possibly closing back down. And so, you kind of miss those team settings with your coworkers and getting to know everybody, keeping up with those relationships. And so, from a personal standpoint, you've got those issues. And then on the work side of things, we've really been impacted on material shortages and labor shortages, as well as, job site screenings and having to shut jobs down for a little bit to clean things up. Luckily, we haven't had too many major impacts as far as personnel goes. But, we've had people out with COVID and having to come back into the workplace and quarantine and all that stuff. On the material side of things, though, we are seeing a lot of delays and products shortages, which I'm sure everybody else is seeing as well. So,
and I know you talked about trying to get ahead of things and just in terms of coordination on job sites, making sure that there isn't delays from other things, because we know we are going to have or potentially have an issue with inventory. And I think you're also trying to combat that a little bit with having some on-site or off-site storage.
Yeah,
or something, so we can try to get ahead of it and anticipate as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get products ordered as quick as possible. So when we're talking with trade partners, it's, almost as soon as they get a letter of intent, and they get their contract, it's like, all right, order your stuff and we'll store it, so we don't have to deal with the costing.
Obviously, general contractor experience there, just kind of sharing how they're trying to get ahead of it. And I think one of the things that we all are trying to do is communicate as much as possible. And I think that's going to be a key factor as we continue to deal with these types of shortages. is to make sure that we're getting ahead of things, making sure we communicate as much as possible. And of course, any way we can hold back from other parts of the project not causing additional delays is definitely something that we're all combating here together. Next up is Laverne. So Laverne, once again, working for so Laverne has to say.
But this is my first trip since basically the 13th of March. And as you know, I'm on the road every week. It's a typical thing. So it was a big change for me.
Yeah.
And what I found, and we closed our office and moved everybody to home. I think it was on the 16th of March. So we've been working there. And it's the biggest thing I find is just the communication. You know, I'll send you an email and you send it back and I'm going like, what the heck are you talking about? Didn't you read my email?
Yeah.
And you spend a half an hour going back and forth, whereas if you were together in 2 minutes, it's done.
Yeah, pop in their office, have that conversation and have it be done.
So, and I end up going in the office one day a week to sign the checks and approve the invoices, those type of things. But as far as the area association, there was a lot of questions when we started, like where are we going and how many projects and so on. We've been floored. We've hit peaks in 2020 and we're hitting peaks in 2021. And it's forced us to do some things that was on our list to do anyway. So we used to go all over the country and do presentations. So now everything is a web. And so we get anywhere from, let's say, 20 people to, a big place, maybe 150, 200, something like that. And now with some of the webinars, we did one where it's 1,083 people. So we've been able, the amount of educational hours in 2020 and 2021 has been phenomenal. And the same things happen to our training. It's always been hands-on, face-to-face and so on. You got to limit the crowd size to maybe 20 per session type of thing. And now because it's virtual, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And we've had training courses for projects in Australia and Czech Republic and Iraq and a few other places like that, that you normally, South Korea, you would normally not have that communication. So that's all been good.
So obviously, Laverne, adjusting to that virtual training setting, as we are right now as well. A couple comments came in during Laverne's video. So a lot of you are obviously engaging in the virtual world. But what I heard from some of you is you're doing this hybrid approach, which I think is great. So maybe what you're doing is engaging with somebody virtually like me or somebody else at your organization, and then you're actually there at that office with somebody. The other suggestion that people are doing are sending kits. So, maybe if you're not there to do the hands-on, or if somebody is remote, people are sending out small little kits so that they can do somewhat of that hands-on. So I know we are getting out there and we're engaging maybe a little more than we were, but I still love this ability to take a hybrid approach to our training so that we can reach out to more people. So if you have other tips and tricks and ideas on how to make this type of engagement, please let me know. I'll definitely share it with everybody. But I definitely see, that hybrid approach could be a great way as we continue to accept this type of virtual engagement. Next up, we're going to hear John from John Posnecker, and let's hear what John's been doing in this time.
Well, the same as the others, right? I think a couple of things to add to that. We've hired a few people last year in the middle of COVID, a young out of school person and then an older person that has a lot of experience. But it's very difficult for them to learn your systems, right? And learn your people when you're not together.
Yeah.
And both of them have, and I think the younger folks is even harder, right? Because they don't have a basis to draw from or expectations of what normal is.
Yeah.
And so that's been interesting, right? And a real challenge to help them along. Other than that, the business-wise, we haven't, at least in Texas, we've been real lucky. It really hasn't hurt our construction industry much at all. We were always out in the field most of the time. We were used to working from home. So for us, it wasn't much of a transition. I think we've learned technology a lot better and made use of it in the field, right? I can see a video while the guy is out doing an observation and answer questions in real time, right? Well, we knew we could before, but just didn't do it.
Right.
So
right.
there's a lot of that that has been a benefit. I think we're all excited to be face to face now.
Yeah.
And you just can't get the same dialogue on a Zoom call that you have with face to face in a group. It's just different.
So obviously John's talking about, it is hard when you're not face to face and not in that group, and how do you get that type of interaction? So I think there's a lot of cool ways that maybe we can, once again, take that hybrid approach, polling questions, maybe different types of, animations or something like that to gain that engagement. But then breakout rooms are another way to kind of get that maybe more intimate connection. So each of these platforms that we're all using has these little breakout rooms. So maybe that is some way that we can handle trying to get a little bit more of that intimacy when we're in these large groups. I always try to make sure that I'm being provocative with my discussion to try to get everyone that's there engaging and asking questions. We did just get another question that came in, and just about motivating people for training, right? So that's a big challenge, right? So we look at those people that are like self-motivated or self-learners, and maybe if you guys are all engaged in education, if you have some ideas on how you motivate people to get on and engage and learn, if you could send me a couple comments, that would be helpful, and we can share that. I know what we started to do is we started to do these short little videos. They're supposed to only be 5 to 7 minutes, but because I'm doing them, I tend to be long-winded. They might creep up to be 10 to 13 minutes. So really quick, short video might be helpful with a few questions afterwards. And the questions really aren't there to test you as much as it's just to kind of solidify that engagement, to make your brain kind of put it back in place. I heard this information, I answered this question, so now it might stay put and not go somewhere else. And so you can utilize it and have it in your brain until you do utilize it. I think that's another key thing. I just got a comment in. It's hard to train somebody ahead of time, right? It's easier when it's something they have active in front of them, meaning it's related to a project that's now. So it's hard to get ahead of things with training. So you almost have to be reactive when it comes to training, but maybe that's where you can combine some videos and then some question and answer periods where you can help get that engagement going. So I asked the guys, like, what do they see? Like, what's next? Like, what's coming next? What are some of the things we need to look at? So we'll check back in with them and see what they had to say about that.
Well, all our members, and especially the contractors, they've been flat out for years. And even the architectural firms and design firms, they've been really, really busy, which has been a surprise for a lot of reasons, because there's been indications we're going to have downturns and so on. I think some of the wild cards is just the price increases. And in some cases, it's the price increase from freight. I was talking to a person here, and they would ship a container from China for $3,000. Today it's $20,000.
Yes, I mentioned that on that call we had, how crazy. And then someone corrected me and they're like, it's now up to like $28,000. So. And
that's just to get it. That doesn't count, bringing it in and so on. So that is, to me, is a real wild card, because we also had the isocyanate shortage, and that's affected almost everything.
Yeah.
And the labor issue hasn't changed, and it hasn't got better. I mean, our contractors would say we could do double the business if we could get the people. We're doing a very concentrated ad hoc group in Washington State, because they've implemented whole building testing with mandatory requirements, so you don't get your occupancy permit. And part of our conversations, 30 to 40% of it, is how do we get good people? So that's helped us, actually, because now
I think that is an issue too, right? How do we get good people? I know because of COVID, because of these situations we're dealing with, people have gone to maybe other trades or other areas. So how do we bring them back? That's where I really think, for those of you listening and paying attention today, if you could reach out to those local organizations that focus on training and get engaged, share your information, share your knowledge by being a part of one of these organizations that focus on training and the trades, is really going to help us get to where we need to be, so that we can continue to have this industry grow. One of the topics that we were able to sit down and talk about, and we hear a lot about, is resiliency and durability. So I reached out once again to the guys and kind of talked to them about that. And ironically, next month, so the whole month of October, we're going to be talking about just that. We're going to be talking about durability, resiliency. And we're going to be sending out the invite for the entire month. So if you're interested in durability and resiliency, you'll be able to accept our invite on Tremco Live for the whole month and really be able to engage with us. And once again, if you have ideas, please let us know. So let's check back in with these guys. And once again, just kind of hear what they have to say about resiliency.
But we got to start building our buildings better. And we have to start thinking of our building enclosure as the most important part of the building. We can change out the HVAC system, we can change out plumbing, we can repaint the walls, but it's really hard to change the whole building enclosure. And we got to do a better job of that for a whole slew of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening behind your wall? I think you mentioned that yesterday. We don't know because we're not maintaining what's happening inside the wall. So we have to have those critical conversations from the beginning. What about you, Trevor? What are you seeing going on there?
I mean, we're seeing more sophisticated owners. You know, they're starting to treat their buildings better than they used to in the past. And they, you know, when they're buying a new building and they see the cost of it, they want materials that are going to last for a long time. So we are starting to see some requirements, especially with institutional builders, you know, healthcare, government entities, Corps of Engineers. You know, they want buildings that last 100, 200 years. And, you know, they're willing to pay for that. Where you have some other builder or owners and developers that just want to flip the project. So, you know, those are hard conversations to have with those guys. But for the most part, we've got some pretty good owners and developers we work with, and you know, put good materials in the buildings, and just from a durability standpoint, we're seeing some pretty good things come out of the industry lately. So,
John, what about you?
I guess it's getting better, maybe. But you still, we as a culture tend to be short-sighted, right? Looking what's happening next week or next year, not 50 years down the road.
right.
And we want that quick return, right? We want to save money right now.
Yeah.
And not look at the long-term investment. Because how many people own a building for 100 years? But it's not a lot. The institutional, maybe. But I don't know how you change that mentality of thinking.
So once again, it's timely that we're going to go right into next month to talk about durability and resiliency. So I think it is critical. We need to look at that long-term performance. We had other conversations about a lot of what you're looking at on our data sheets or anyone's data sheets is in order to be equivalent with everyone else, we test at steady state, right? So generally 73 degrees, 72 degrees, and 50% relative humidity. And that's great because we need to be able to compare things at that steady state. But what's important is how things start to change. How does that entire system, how is it going to perform long term? How is it going to perform in all the different conditions of where we build it? In that, where we are sitting right there, we're in a small enclosed meeting area, and outside is an atrium. On the fourth floor is a pool. It's 32 stories tall, right? It's in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's not the same type of building that's next to it or adjacent to it. And it you know, if you're building that in another northern city or northern climate, there's different things to consider. So once again, there's a lot that we need to be able to share and show. And I really, it's more of a call to action. One of the final things we all said is we need to start today. We need to start today. We should have started yesterday as we continue to look for resiliency. So as I reach out to all of you, I'm really hoping that we can all kind of engage together and continue to work and address the resiliency of our structures. So if you are interested, please reach out directly to me, put it in the chat, put it in the question pane, and let me know if you'd like to participate in what we're calling, you know, that next phase of what we're trying to do here. So thanks for joining me today. Thanks for joining me for Tremco Live. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Stay in touch, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.